Most people believe that if they just train harder, their body will change faster. That belief is exactly why so many busy men never transform. If you search build muscle on YouTube, what do you see? Endless videos of muscle gurus doing exercises. Because the fitness industry is obsessed with training. But here's the truth most people never hear. Your body doesn't change when you train. It changes when you're not training. And that's where the entire industry gets it wrong. In this episode, I'm going to show you the 4 fundamental pillars of a successful body transformation. Not as isolated tactics, but as one efficient system. Because if you're putting in effort every week and that effort isn't translating into visible change, then you don't have a motivation problem. You have a systems problem. And for busy men, efficiency isn't optional. It's everything. Now, why is this important? If you're putting in maximum effort, but you're not getting maximum output, that means you've got a leak in the system. You've got an efficiency problem. You're wasting energy. Now, we need to find out where those leaks are to block them and to improve the outputs. That's what you do with your business, right? That's what you do in your work. So why don't you do that in your transformation? Now, let's have a look at that search I told you about earlier. So I did that search myself, where I searched on YouTube, build muscle. And these are the results I got. All these famous muscle gurus, most of their videos, vast majority of their videos are of them in the gym, are of them doing exercises, are of them training. Now, what that's telling you is that if you want to create a successful body transformation, it's all about the training. So they do videos on what exercises to do, what are the best exercises to hit this particular muscle, what splits you should be doing in the gym, how many reps you should be doing, how many sets you should be doing, how to activate your biceps the best way, what's the best pull-up form to do. Everything is around the training. Now, don't get me wrong. Training is fundamentally important to a successful body transformation, but it's not everything. And all these muscle gurus giving you the impression that training is everything. And you know why? Because they love training. Because training is their life. Training is their job. Training is how they're making money. They do spend all the time in the gym. But you're a busy man. You don't have the time that they have to spend all the time in the gym. And this is exactly what happened with Sulayman. He trained hard. I mean hard. He trained harder than I even got him to train. He would push further than I was actually pushing him. He trained consistently. He'd turn up every morning, and we used to train 6 o'clock in the morning in the park. Even when it was cold, Sulayman would be there. And yet his body barely changed. Not because he wasn't disciplined, but because training was the only pillar he was actually addressing. Once we aligned all 4 pillars, which I'll address in the coming slides, his effort finally started converting into results. Now, let's have a look at what those 4 pillars are. As you can see, they are spelt term. Now, why do I call that term? Because I want you to be in shape all year round. Not like these bodybuilders or these muscle gurus who are only in shape 1 month, 2 months, or during the summer. You want to be in shape all year round. Now, the first of those pillars is train. So as mentioned, training is fundamentally important. But here's the problem. The training programs provided by the fitness industry want you to train at least 3 days a week, 3 to 7 days a week training. Now, which is fine for them. As mentioned, they love training. They spend all their time in the gym. Their job is the gym. Your job isn't the gym. So you don't have 3, 5, 7 days a week to train in the gym. You're a busy professional, responsibilities, a real life. That's just completely unrealistic. And that's why I get my 135 crew members to train properly, but they only need to train once a week for 35 minutes. And I drill into them, because you're only training once a week for 35 minutes, you need to make sure that this training session is the best training session you've ever done. So we actually prepare a day, 2 days in advance for the training session. We mentally and physically prepare ourselves for that training session and make sure the form is on point, each exercise is on point, and we're mentally focused to smash each and every personal best. Because training is the impetus that you give to your body to create the change that you're after. Now, the second of those pillars is eat. Now, by eating, I don't mean go out and stuff yourself full of food. I mean the fuel and the nutrients that you put in your body to fuel your body transformation. Because nutrition is where the magic happens. Because as the old adage goes, you are what you eat. So we need to make sure our nutrition is on point. But here's the problem. Traditional meal plans provided by the fitness industry, they want you to calorie count your food, to meal prep your food, to eat restrictive meals, to eat specific meals at specific times of the day, which is possible maybe for the first week, 2 weeks, month, maybe if you're really fortunate, the first couple of months. But when life gets a hold, when life becomes difficult, it's too difficult to maintain long term. So my members that I have in the 135 crew, or people that I speak to all the time about nutrition, about fitness, they always tell me about these crazy diets. And then I always ask them, and then what happened? Oh, I couldn't maintain it. I went back to what I was doing. I put on more weight than I actually lost during that plan, because they're too difficult to maintain. What I give my 135 crew members is a simple visual meal plate that is so simple to follow. There's no calorie counting. There's no restrictive diets. There's no meal prepping. I show them a visual structure of the plate which apportions their macronutrients. So in the 135 nutrition system, we have medium carb days and low carb days. Now, what on earth are those, you're asking? Well, we structure a 7-day cycle around your single training session per week. That one single training session per week using my optimum overload system unlocks this whole world of opportunities. Because you train only once a week, you're not constantly fueling your body with carbs to fuel your workouts, because you're only training once. So you only need to fuel your body once a week. Then once you've trained and you've trained properly and you've smashed your training, you're now giving your body the impetus to create that change that you're after. So then we structured the week based upon having medium carb days and low carb days to give the body and the muscles the fuel and the building blocks with protein and carbs to build those muscles bigger. And then once we've given it the raw materials, we now try to pull back on those carbs to focus on fat loss as well as muscle gain. And then on the 7th day, we start to fuel the body again for that single training session per week. By the way, if this framework is already changing how you think about fitness, make sure you're subscribed. Each of these pillars has its own dedicated episode where I go much deeper. Training, nutrition, sleep, and measurement. Because surface level advice is exactly what keeps people stuck. This channel isn't about hype. It's about building a body that works with your life. If you want access to my newsletter where I go into more detail on this, comment 135. Now we've covered training, we've covered nutrition. Now the next pillar that is also massively overlooked, probably the most overlooked pillar of all of them, is recover. Now what do I mean by recover? I mean resting and, importantly, sleeping. Because after you've had that killer training session, you then need to give your body the time to recover from that training session. Because what you've done with the training session is put your body into a negative damaged state, which it first needs to recover from. Then the repair process happens. Then the regrow process happens. Now, when does that regrow actually happen? Which is what I call prime time. It actually happens when you're sleeping. So in the 135 body system, we focus heavily on improving your sleep. But we don't get you to improve your sleep all at once. We get you to gradually improve your sleep with small tweaks each phase. And as you can see here on the screen, I put in there the different phases that you go through in the 135 body system, because we don't focus on overnight change. We focus on building positive patterns of behavior, because only building positive patterns of behavior will you create long-term change and get out of that cycle that you have with the fitness industry of short-term gains that you don't have any long-term results to show for. So we're after creating habitual change that will change you for life. Now, the problem with the fitness industry is that with sleep, they hardly give any time to it. Professional athletes give huge amounts of importance to sleep, but these fitness gurus and muscle gurus rarely talk about it. But the truth of the matter is that sleep is the prime time your muscles are actually go through that growth process. And if your sleep is on point, you remove the impediments for your body to also burn fat. So if you don't fix your sleep can't fix you. And the fourth fundamental pillar that we focus on in the 135 body system is measure. Now, what do I mean by measure? I mean by measuring all the three previous pillars. Measuring your training, how you trained, what you achieved in your last training session, what were your power ratings for each exercise, how you felt in that exercise, how long you trained for. You need to measure everything, because what gets measured gets managed. And then we also look at what you ate, when you ate, how many times a day you ate. And then we track also your sleep, when you slept, when you woke up, how many cycles you got in each and every day, how many cycles you got in a week, how you felt when you woke up. All of these things are measured with the Heroes Journal. Every 135 member crew gets 3 of these journals, each one for each phase of the program. And it has a day-by-day journal measuring all of these 3 pillars. And then we have a weekly meeting where we go through your previous week, look at what's working, what's not, so that we can tweak it, so that we can improve for the following week. This is why measurement is non-negotiable inside 135. When things aren't measured, they're emotional. When they're measured, they're solvable. The Heroes Journal isn't about obsession. It's about simplicity. A few numbers, a few daily check-ins, 1 weekly review, body by numbers. So progress becomes obvious and motivation becomes automatic. If you want to understand each of these pillars properly, I strongly recommend watching the other episodes on this channel. There's one dedicated to training once a week, one on eating without calorie counting, one on sleep and recovery, and one on why measurement changes everything. They're designed to be watched together because transformation doesn't happen in isolation. So think of your body like a car with a puncture. You can keep pressing the accelerator, you can keep filling the tire, you can burn more and more fuel. But if you never fix the puncture, you're just wasting energy. That's exactly what happens when you overemphasize training and ignore the other pillars. The solution isn't more effort. It's finding the leak and fixing the system. That's what 135 is about. Train less, live more. I'll see you in the next episode.